All right, welcome back to another episode of the Scar Nation podcast. Today we got Nicole Chatagnier is your last name. Okay, today that was a hard one for me. Today we got Nicole Chatagnier, author of a book. What's the name of your book again?
Victorious, My Path to Redemption.
Victorious, My Path to Redemption. Y'all be sure to go check that out. She's a recovering addict of 8 years that served 2 years in prison. So I'm gonna go ahead and just let you take the floor and introduce yourself, Nicole.
All right. I'm Nicole, and I'm obviously from the South. My upbringing, I feel like, was all American upbringing. I'll get into that more in a minute. But like you said, I'm almost 8 years clean, and my husband and I run recovery homes. We're both published authors, and that's what we do. I'm all about recovery, and we all recover differently. My story is one of a lot of a lot of trials and tribulations, but I made it. So here I am. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, congratulations on that.
So you
So,
just go ahead.
okay, so yeah, let's just get right into it. So so what led up to you getting involved in the drug scene and doing all that? You know, what age did you start? Like, what was your childhood like? Kind
Uh,
of, yeah,
that's a loaded question.
yeah.
I especially like to tell my testimony because I think that there's a stereotype that goes along with addiction.
Hmm.
And I'm not one anybody saw coming. So all of our stories are important. But
For
I
sure.
my childhood was near perfect. I'm an only child. I was really overloved, if that makes any sense. Like I had no coping mechanisms were developed because I was spoiled rotten, and
Mhm.
everything always went my way. I have dealt with self-esteem issues horribly bad my whole life. I do believe that that definitely played a role in my addiction. Uh, I would panic. Like I was super popular in high school, and when it came time to walk for homecoming court and all those things, I would have anxiety attacks, but nobody could see it. It was like I could
Mhm.
hide it. I could have the
Right.
smile, I could look confident, and that really hurt me in my adult life. I've never smoked a cigarette, and I never really went out. I wasn't one that would have ever gone out and tried drugs. I was a drinker in high school and college, of course, but I didn't really even enjoy that much. Like one hangover would keep me from drinking again for a long time. And when I got to college, things just weren't what I thought they were going to be. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't under anybody else's direction. The pressure of being perfect.
Mhm.
I didn't. I made in a shoe dance line. Didn't even want to do that. I dropped out. I wasn't going to class. I had a full paid scholarship to college,
Mhm.
and I just didn't care. It was like I had made it to 18 and I had no clue who I was, like no clue. Never washed a load of clothes before in my life. I
Oh
was,
wow.
yeah, it was like I was so spoiled to the point
Yeah.
of almost a handicap. Like,
Right.
I just couldn't do anything. And later in therapy, I learned that your self esteem is built when you complete tasks on your own when you're little,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
never did that.
Yes, it
So,
really is. That's a true stat. That's actually something very valuable you just said, man. I've been preaching that for a minute. Accomplishments and getting things done in your life, like accomplishing things, is how you get that real confidence and dopamine hit in your brain. Like that's how you
yes,
unlock that. And when you take drugs, you artificially unlock that. It's
right.
not
And
natural.
right, I tell people, don't baby your kids. I mean, you got to let them fall down and get dirty and
Yeah.
learn from their mistakes and complete things. Otherwise, you're going to end up with me. And you don't want that. But when I was 20, I got pregnant. And I instantly knew that I didn't want to be with the guy. I'd just gotten out of a 5-year relationship, and I just broke up with him. It's like, okay,
Mm.
I don't think we should be together. I didn't mean that he couldn't be a part of my son's life, who's 23, but we hadn't seen him since, and we're not sweating it.
Mm.
Um, he just left. It is what it is.
Right.
And I went and got I was working 2 jobs. I was working 15-hour days. And I was proud of myself, I think, for the first time ever. And at 7 months pregnant, I was walking on a wet floor and I slipped and fell. And I didn't want to land on my tummy because I was trying to protect my child.
Mm.
My kneecap goes to the back of my leg, breaks in 3 pieces when I hit the ground, and that bone cuts my knee all up.
Wow.
And I'm in trouble. They took me to the hospital, and I had to make the decision: do I let them fix this and possibly lose my child because his lungs were not developed yet or completely yet? Or do I take the risk of being crippled? And I didn't even have to think about it. I was like, no, like, just, so they admitted me and my leg was in pieces. I gave birth that way.
Wow.
Yeah, I call it the National Lampoon childbirth because I mean, I had a grown woman holding up my broken leg so I could hold on to my right. And it really wasn't even that scary. I just, I was ready. I had absolutely no idea that that slip and fall was going to change my life. This was the year 2000, so this is really kind of the very beginning of the opioid crisis.
Yeah, your son definitely can't question your love for him.
With no, well, I mean, you say that now, you haven't heard. I mean, he doesn't, and everything's
Yeah.
fine, but things got pretty dark.
Yeah, addiction does that. It's
It,
got a way of doing that, tearing
it,
families apart and all that. But we're gonna get into that.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Um, But like I said, this is the beginning of the opioid crisis, and my starting dose was OC80s with breakthrough Percocet, and I wasn't even taking those as prescribed. Like, because that's a lot, right? And
Yeah.
I'm in therapy, I think I have, it was somewhere between 9 to 12 operations before they amputate my patella. Um,
Mm.
it's gone. They said I would have a limp and things like that, but I do okay. Um, and it was, I was single mom, and I went to school. I became a medical esthetician. I'm a functioning person, but I'm still having to take these pain meds. But where
Yeah.
things go wrong for me is when my little boy is 2, his hair starts to fall out. He has a condition called alopecia universalis, and he's hairless like the cat on Austin Powers. We joke about it. We have a good, attitude about it. But at the time, I didn't. I'm gonna be
Right.
honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a very sensitive person. I've never made fun of anybody in my life. I will take up for people that are getting made fun of. And now I'm mad because my little boy is different and he's gonna be made fun of, and I can't deal with that. And the very first time that I abused the pills, we had been in Walmart and a family was just looking at him and staring at him. And I was just so angry. I went home and I popped a couple pills to kill that, to kill
Right.
an emotional pain.
Yeah.
And probably most definitely one of the top 3 worst decisions that I ever made. While I was working on movie sets in Shreveport, I'd gotten up to 40 Percocets a day and nobody had a clue.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, I had an extremely high tolerance.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, I say I was like an elephant, but I mean, anybody's tolerance builds when you've started off with things that are really high, like OC80s, and, they had sent
Mm.
me home with a Dilaudid pump more than once.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. You were getting the top level stuff. The
I,
OC80s, they were, and this all came from you hurting your leg, right? The
all of
prescription
it.
pain medications.
And you have to understand that, especially the first 2 or 3 years, I'm not even realizing that this is a thing, that I can get hooked on this, that this is drugs. Like, it's not
Mm.
registering because a
Yeah, they
doctor is
don't
giving it to me.
they didn't used to explain that to people. It's crazy, man. You know, the doctors got to take a lot of blame for the way this opioid epidemic went because they probably didn't even tell you that. That hey, these
Well,
are
I know
addictive.
they said it wasn't addictive. In fact, my doctor actually did get in a bit of trouble. And I'll blow your mind. This is how old I am. I remember the day that I pulled through the pharmacy and there was a sign up and it said, starting November the 1st,
Mhm.
you will need a driver's license to pick up a controlled substance.
Yeah.
So like you could roll in, pick up whatever. Refills didn't matter. They didn't monitor that, it didn't matter. And then I guess, the government and everything starts picking up on things. So then they change the laws. But I
Yeah.
remember pulling up at the pharmacy that day, seeing that sign, thinking,
Yeah.
okay, I wasn't worried about the ID part, but I was concerned about everything else because I was taking a lot.
Yeah.
I,
By this time, you were fully dependent. It was a yeah,
fully.
you needed it.
Fully. I'm
Yeah.
talking deathly ill. And here it is. I've got this job. I'm making like $4,000 or $5,000 a week. And this is in the early 2000s. So I am buying off the street, but it's not even hurting my pocketbook. It's really not because of they weren't even that expensive on the street back then.
Yeah.
And I was functioning. And for people who don't know, who are listening, I remember like if I ran out and I would take my son to my mom to babysit or my aunt or my grandmother's to go to work, wait, because my dealer's waiting for me, at work, and they would think I was on something when I was on nothing because I would just be like so out of it without it. Like if I
Yeah.
didn't have it, I could not function.
Right.
And I don't think a lot of people understand that, that it becomes a prison where if you do not have it, you are going to be deathly ill.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like people get that. It's not something that we plan. It's something
No,
that
they don't.
happens.
People that haven't been through it, they don't understand it. People that have been through it do, but yeah, people that don't, they don't understand that part about the chains that you tie onto yourself when you get dependent on this stuff. They don't understand that part. A lot of people have the mindset of, well, why don't you just quit? Why don't you just, as if you can just, okay, I'll just quit. I ain't gonna do it no more.
You
And
can't.
it's yeah, it's not that
And
easy.
I can't tell you how many times, especially towards the end, that I would be like, if I could just get through the withdrawal, I'll be okay. It's like I can't get through it.
Yeah.
And I meant that, and I proved that I meant it because once I got through the withdrawal, like that was wrap.
Mm,
I did, and I'll get to that part, but I ended up on Subutex before it was over.
yeah.
And I support all forms of recovery. It's just definitely not for me. That
Right.
that
Of
math is not for
course.
me.
Absolutely. I
It
feel the
it
same
made
way.
things, yeah, it made things. It changed me for one. I was on 3 8 milligrams a day, and for a long time I injected it, and I'll get to that. But it just that was the hardest thing, that withdrawal, to go cold turkey from 3 8 milligrams a day.
Subutex.
Yes,
Yeah. I've went through Subutex withdrawals, and it's no joke.
sure isn't.
Yeah.
Uh, um, but I. I functioned for a long time and I was successful in all of these things, but I had gotten to the point to where if I didn't have my meds I couldn't work.
Yeah.
And that's starting to affect my life and everything. And in 2000, and I want to say it was about 2008, um that's where things start to go really rough for me. Um there was a guy that I had known my whole entire life. At one point, he was the most wanted man in the state of Louisiana.
Damn.
Hadn't seen him in 9 years, and I hadn't seen him because he had been sentenced to prison time.
Mm,
And he had armed robbery charges for pharmacies, but because they didn't find the weapons or the drugs or the money, they dropped it to simple robbery. And because he is organized, his family has a ton of money, so they got the right attorney. Only got 9 years, and
mm.
he's out. So I shoot him a message on Facebook. I had always thought he was attractive, but in high school I was goody two shoes, so I knew better. You know what I mean? But now I'm on all these pills, right?
Yeah. You're out
So
there now at this point.
right, and I also knew that he was a permanent connection. I'm not gonna lie. I'm
Right.
not gonna lie about that. I knew he would have access to whatever it was I needed. And I remember the day parked on the roof of El Dorado Casino in Shreveport, Louisiana, watching him get out of his vehicle to come to me. And I remember thinking, this is a terrible idea. Because people say things, and I can always tell if somebody's really had a bad experience because the devil doesn't show up looking like a monster.
Right.
He looks like everything that you want, everything you think you need, everything you think you want. And I knew it was a bad idea, but I was also so tired of living my life for everybody else. Like at this point, I'm nearly 30 and I haven't gotten a speeding ticket. Like I've done everything right. I'm bored, if that makes any sense. Like I'm
Yeah.
I'm taking pills and I'm doing it. It's like this might be exciting. And that whole romanticizing of Bonnie and Clyde is a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. For
A-
sure. For
and
sure.
I laugh. I'm like, forget Bonnie and Clyde. I got my Johnny and June now, right? So
Yeah. Hmm.
it's like it's insane because I knew better. I've always had a really strong intuition and I knew I was making a mistake and I did it anyway because it
You
was
know,
enticing.
it sounds to me, which I know a lot of people can relate with this, including myself. It sounds to me like you were very sheltered as a kid, and when you kind of was able to kind of make your own decisions, you went crazy because you didn't have
Yes.
that shelter anymore, right?
Mm-mm. I didn't have the shelter but it's deeper than that.
Yeah.
It wasn't I was sheltered, but I witnessed a lot of things as a child. Like a lot of my cousins died when I was young, and
Oh,
I'm
okay.
also I like neurotic where I worry about things. I have anxiety
Mhm.
and things. So I didn't want my parents to get the phone call in the middle of the night that I had died in a drunk driving accident or whatever.
Right.
And I had all these fears, and the pills removed the inhibitions. They removed the fear. They removed me being neurotic. I wasn't worried about anything.
Yes,
And
yes, I know exactly. So many people are relating to you right now. That's why we take them. That because
right,
I'm a recovering opioid addict myself. Like my DOC was opioids. I didn't care what kind it was.
me
That's
either.
what I liked. Like that's what. And
Yeah.
what you're saying, that's how it was for me. It took away those negative feelings, like
It's like, right.
anxiety.
And it's almost like, I hate to say this, but it's almost like the world finally makes sense to you
Yeah.
because you're not worried about anything. And it's all, it just, I had energy and stuff when I was on
Oh yeah.
it. I wasn't, I got to the point where I was not off, obviously.
Yeah.
But like when I was working, everything, I was full of energy. Everybody thought I was this super mom, this PTA mom. But in reality, I'm crying myself to sleep at night because my son's got this condition and I'm not happy,
Mhm.
and it consumed my life really bad. When I start seeing this man that I just had referred to, I knew he was a needle user. Obviously I knew he had done the robberies and everything like that. And we start hanging out a lot, but then he gets hemmed up and has to go back in on a parole violation for 11 months.
Oh wow.
In those 11 months, I get you hold him down. What I'm doing is putting so much money on his books and the phone so we can talk several times a day that I just completely lose all my savings and everything.
Mm.
And he doesn't know that I'm as bad off as I am. One of the things that I did do right is I did do Subutex and wean off that last month before he came home because we had decided that we were going to get married and have a child. And I was not, I couldn't do that, like get pregnant knowing that I had this pill problem.
Right.
So I managed to wean off. For that. And I did believe that he was going to change. And I think this can happen to men too, not just women. But there's something about a man that we think is unattainable that makes us think that we might be the one. You know what I'm saying? And I
Yeah.
was stupid enough to think that he was gonna change and that I was gonna be the one. And it was almost this fantasy that I had. And when he came home, we got married within 2 or 3 days,
Mm.
and we get pregnant within 3 weeks. It's fast.
Damn. Y'all wasn't
Like
playing around.
we wouldn't. It's super fast. And I remember when I found out I was pregnant, I was scared because I had to, I had raised my son who's now 11
Mhm.
by myself. I gave birth alone with him. And I'm scared because I'm thinking, well, what if he doesn't get it right? You know what I mean? Like, what if I got to do this alone again?
Yeah.
And I remembered being scared. And he instantly went back into drugs. So now I'm having to see that, and I can't get high. And I didn't for my child, but it was miserable. Like
Mhm.
I hold nothing back. I wanted to use every day and didn't because of my son. And it's the only thing I think I did right in my addiction. But when I was 5 months pregnant, he came home. It was Valentine's Day. I mean, who could forget it? But we had been on the phone talking, and remember when you would drop your cell phone and it would go like the battery would come out?
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
had to, okay. So I'm on the phone with him. The battery falls out. I drop the phone. The battery falls out. I got to put it back in. It takes me a minute. I call him back. He doesn't answer. And I'm like, he'll call me right back because he was working. And it wasn't even 5 or 10 minutes. I hear the screech in the driveway, and I'm like, okay, he's gonna surprise me because it's Valentine's Day.
He was mad.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he came in for whatever reason. He thought that I was cheating on him, which was so ridiculous. But everybody knows the accusing spouse is the one that's really doing the cheating.
Yeah. Psychology 101.
Yes. But he came in and he picked me up by my throat,
Mm.
and that was the first time he beat the snot out of me. Um, and I think so many people don't understand when you're in this situation, a domestic violence situation is an addiction. I didn't think that I deserved it. I was scared to death, but I didn't think that I deserved it. But what I did think is that he loved me so much he had to do that.
Mm.
Um, I wish I understood my thought process. I've talked to many women and they had the same thought process.
Yeah.
I don't know where that comes from. Maybe it's just you're talking yourself into he loves you or whatever. But it was scary
And
because
and there's an
once,
attachment there. There's an attachment there already built between. I've been involved in, not myself, but I've seen on the outside looking in a bunch of domestic violence situations, and oftentimes the man will. There's a lot of narcissism involved, and they've stripped the woman from, you don't deserve anything. I'm the best you can do, and people get. There's a lot of psychological bullshit that goes on in those situations.
yes,
So I've
100%.
yeah,
And
I've seen them play out.
like they love bomb you. They don't come in acting like that. They do everything perfect for so long and they make you feel so special. And
Yeah.
my husband now is my best friend and we openly talk about everything. But the like I had thought my ex-husband was the love of my life. Like it was the strongest addiction that I feel like I had.
Mm.
Um, it was like I felt like we were unstoppable and he's this big criminal and he chose me even though he's cheating on me all the time and beating me. I'm thinking the rest of the world won't understand our love story, which is ridiculous. But being transparent in the moment, that's what it was.
Yeah.
I I even remember on days that I wanted to leave, I would think I'll never feel this way again about anybody. I'll never have this passion for anybody. And this man put me through absolute hell.
Mm.
Um, and I'm very open and transparent with my story, no matter how embarrassing it is. But when I went in for my checkup being pregnant, the I've never really slept around ever. That's the one thing I kind of done correctly as far as morals and things go.
Yeah.
Um, so when I go in for my checkup, I test positive for chlamydia.
Oh wow.
And the shame and embarrassment that I felt, it was like, I mean, you feel dirty, you're embarrassed. Here it is, I'm pregnant. And I knew that if I came in and told him that, he would flip it on me and possibly kill me.
Mm.
And so I lied and said that I had a bad urinary tract infection and that I needed him to take this antibiotic. It can't, you know what I mean? So we're not swapping it. And just being so scared, even saying that. Um, and it was, the whole thing was just so embarrassing.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even, I mean, he's trashed the whole time I'm pregnant. And about 4 weeks before I give birth, he's in the middle of a heroin deal that goes wrong. And he got extremely lucky because it was a trespassing charge that ended up getting dropped, but they held him for, I want to say 90, 120 days on a parole hold. And, you know, and then they had nothing, they let him go. So there it is again. I'm giving birth again alone.
Mm.
And that affected me greatly in my life because that's like that moment where it's supposed to be happy. And
Yeah.
both times at 21 and then at 32,
You
I
got
just
robbed.
said, yeah, and it's like, you know, and I remember the shame of the nurses being in the room and I'm waiting on a prison to call so I can tell him that his son's been born. And it's just the whole thing was traumatizing. The mental abuse and the physical abuse will do something to somebody that just almost makes you feel so numb to the world.
Yeah.
And I, at this point, I like as soon as I had my son, you got to I'm ready to get high. I'm ready for some
Right.
opiates
I was fixing to ask you that. So you stayed sober the whole time of your
the
pregnancy,
whole time.
and
But
this guy's
I'm
over here getting high, not doing all this.
Yes, beating me, cheating me. Like he'd have
Crazy.
girls that he cheated on me with would call and he'd be like, "I told you not to call when my wife's here," and he'd cuss her out. And I'm thinking that I'm special for that. Like
Right.
seriously, like complete ridiculousness. And it goes down to your self esteem.
Yeah.
Anybody with any self worth or any self esteem is not going to put up with that. And yet I did, you know? And he would he would say things to me because I'm very smart and you know, a lot of people would say that I'm funny. And those are the things that mean something to me, like I'm a good person. And he would say, "You're so stupid, you're, you know, you're this, you're that, you're a loser, but I'm not gonna say you're not beautiful." Like, because he knew that would hurt me more. And
Yeah.
with my kids, including my son, that's not him, he would say, "I'll make them hate you. I'll make them choose me." So he was good to them as a ploy to hurt me. And, you know, I had perfect teeth. And one night I was cooking dinner and messed it up. And he threw me down on the floor and made me eat it off the floor and broke my teeth by
Man,
stepping
this guy
on my.
was crazy.
Yeah, he's a 12 or 13 time convicted felon now.
Serious narcissist too.
Serious,
Yeah.
serious. And if you met him, I mean, he's likable when you meet him. You know what I'm saying?
They
Like
all
it's
are.
they
Yeah,
all
on the
are.
out
Like you're thinking they're
behind closed
great.
doors, that's when you see all the bullshit. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Um, but I remember, you know, like when my teeth broke that night, that was just so devastating. I didn't even have a cavity until I was in my late 20s, and now I'm missing like half of these.
That's crazy.
And yeah, it was very upsetting. And when he came home, you know, I literally from the second my son was born, you know, they're prescribing me. They, you know, I had a C-section. They prescribed me Percocets. I'm calling my connections, and um, you know, I went right back to it. I'm not gonna lie to you,
Right.
and I'm ashamed of doing that, obviously. But when he did get home, it just, you know, the abuse started right back in, and then that's when the needle starts. On
Mhm.
my 33rd or 34th birthday, he came in and he was like, "Look, we're fitting to shoot this up," and I'm not gonna blame him because he didn't have a gun to my head,
Right.
but at the same time, I thought I couldn't leave. I knew I'd take a beating if I didn't do it, and I was scared of it. But
Right.
I'm also transparent enough to say that once you go that route, you're not going back to any other route. Or at
Right.
least that's the way it was for me.
Yeah.
Um,
He knew he had influence over you.
He did.
Yeah.
He would control, oddly enough, he would control my doses and things. Like, he would administer it. Uh, and he was just in control of everything. Um, he's steadily, I don't get into the things that I witnessed in my book or anything because of the crimes and everything like that. I'm not stupid. When you know somebody that's organized or affiliated, you don't talk about it. But like, I'm
Yeah.
witnessing stuff, it's scary. But at the same time, it's not scary enough for me to leave. I wish I would have, but I didn't. And April of 2013 comes around, and he gives me the absolute beating of my life, and gets caught up in a cocaine deal gone bad at a Waffle House. But he gets charged with robbing the Waffle House for whatever reason.
Damn.
That's embarrassing enough,
Yeah.
robbing a Waffle
Robbing the
House.
Waffle House. What are you in here for, bro? Man, I robbed
Right?
the Waffle House.
It's like, I mean, it was so embarrassing being in the hospital and seeing it on the news. Like, that's my husband, the Waffle House robber,
That's
like
crazy.
the biscuit burglar.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but and you would think that I would be like, okay, this is it. I'm going to get it together. But I mourned the loss of him. They had taken him from me, is the way that I saw it. And
Yeah.
because he's got so many felonies, they said, we're flattening you out. You're doing 6 years flat. Like, you're
Mm.
not getting no good time, nothing. And you would think that I would have gotten it together, but I just couldn't. It was like they had taken him from me. I'm going to wait this out. But I'm also addicted. So I've got to figure this out. And I had a friend that I'd known probably 10 or 15 years, and he had the same addiction as me. And so we just started hooking up, and he knew I was married, and even my husband at the time knew what I was doing. And my excuse was, you beat me when you were out. You cheated on me all the time. I'm not, I got to do what I got to do till you get out. I was honest about it.
Yeah.
And the gentleman that I got involved with was not abusive at all, but he has heavy, heavy mental illness. It's, not his fault. I don't blame him for that. Um, and it was a very toxic relationship when you've got two people that are needle users, and you're just shooting up all the time. And I've got my kids, but now my parents are like, they know that my ex is locked up, and they're like, they took my kids, and they
Yeah.
thought that it would make me go to rehab, but it didn't. Because the addicted brain, what so many people don't understand, you're not making sense. I thought I would die. Like, now you've taken away the only reason I had to be awake or be conscious, and I'm going to die without this. And now I don't even have a reason to live.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's addiction for you in a nutshell. It comes in and it kind of strips every bit of outside happiness that you think is even possible. Like, this is, I need this. I remember thinking the same way. I need this. Like, I can't
Yes.
imagine my life without this.
And
So
right, yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. That's crazy. I'm sorry
And
you went through all that.
you go into victim mentality too.
Yes.
Because I was like, they don't understand that I have to. Don't you think if I could quit this, I would? Poor me. You took my kids. And I mean, I was manipulative.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, victim mentality. And it's just how it happened. And people don't
Yeah.
understand that. Like, if you
You're
haven't
right.
been there, you don't get it.
You're
And
right. I just want to cut in real quick because you
no, go
said
ahead.
something
Cut in
so
anytime.
important. The victim mentality. You have got, if you want to get clean, and you know this, and every other recovery addict knows this. If you want to get clean, you have got to drop that victim mindset. You
Right.
got to start taking some accountability, and that's when
Facts.
your life will start to grow. A lot of addicts I've noticed, and I was the same way, to a degree. I had the victim mindset, like I struggled to take accountability, and until that changed, I couldn't get clean. So I just wanted to throw
Yeah.
that out there.
Yeah, no, cut in anytime. I love that. I love the conversation back and forth.
For sure. Yeah.
But yeah, victim mentality is a real thing, and you couldn't
Yeah.
tell me anything. And the excuses I was making was my heart was broken because my son had this condition. then I'm beat on all the time. And now you took my kids. Like, there was no accountability in anything I was saying, and I couldn't see that the trauma, so much of the trauma that happened to me, I caused myself. I
Yeah.
mean, it is what it is. And we work with addicts, and when they're not willing to be accountable, I know they're not ready to get sober. That's the
Right.
first thing I look for,
Right. You're
is
right.
lose the victim mentality and start being accountable. And if they're not willing to do that, I know they're not ready,
You're right. You're
because
exactly
I've
right.
been there.
Hmm.
But as I'm with this guy, we're homeless, and we're trying to hustle up enough money, for hotels and stuff like that. But um, like I said, I never really slept around. So in my father is an incredible man, and he like laid these things for me. You know what I mean? And and I don't judge women that hit the streets and did that. It's just, for me, I thought being a criminal would was the route I was going. That was the route I was comfortable with, and
Right.
that's wrong too. But we're stealing stuff. He's a painter. He's doing most of the stealing, but I'm selling it and spending the money. So, like, I'm just as guilty.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing. But I can't keep up with my habit at this point. I've lost everything. I've lost my kids. And that's when I decide that I'm going to go get on the Subutex, because they'll give it to me for pain management, because I don't have a kneecap and I've got all these other health problems. So that's what I'm going to do. And I didn't go into it with the right attitude, and I do start injecting it. Um, that stuff's not meant for your veins.
No, no, it's crazy. Yeah, but I've heard of people doing that. I
Yes.
never did it, but I've definitely seen it happen.
Well, the odd thing is I don't think I even got any kind of rush or anything from it. I don't know what the deal. Actually, I do. Know what the deal is. I was still obsessed with my ex-husband, and he was the only person I'd done that with, and for some reason it was like getting a piece of him when I did that. It's sick.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
sick.
that's understandable. Yeah, because a lot of people, they don't understand. They don't just get addicted to the substance. It's like getting ready and the ritual around the do it. Like all of that is addictive.
It was, yeah, and it that's just what it was. And
Yeah.
um I am, this one's tough. I am highly educated when it comes to the faith. Like I said, I was a medical esthetician, and so I would shoot up in my face.
Hmm. Wow.
Everything, everything else was. I'm starting to break out in abscesses. I start getting MRSA, and I'm just blown. I'm blown everywhere else. So yeah, I shoot up in my face. This big scar on my forehead is from MRSA in my forehead, and I got to the point in my addiction. It was so dark and ugly that, I mean, I couldn't even go into public. Like, I looked like a zombie, as in like rotting body, rotting
Right.
corpse,
Wow.
and it just, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I was hospitalized with MRSA. I
For what
can't
it
possibly
for
tell
what
you.
it's worth right now though, you look great. You don't look like if I seen you and didn't know about all this, I wouldn't think you went through all that.
Thank you.
I just want to throw that out there.
I love that. I love that compliment. Because I don't think any of us want to look like what we've been through.
Hell no. Hell no.
Like, we
Absolutely
don't.
right.
And like I said, I even mentioned I had the self-esteem issues and everything, and it my addiction removed that. Like, how can you go from having self-esteem issues and vanity issues to putting a needle in your face?
Right.
And I mean, think about how severe that is. Think about how that's proof that my addiction had just completely taken my mind over.
Yeah.
And it was terrifying. My teeth are starting to rot, the
Mm.
ones that I've got left. I'm starting to look I laugh. I kind of look like a gargoyle. Because it was like straight monster like looking, and
Yeah.
teeth go down to hygiene, and
Yeah.
I remember I used to look at other people who had problems with their teeth and think it was a dirty thing. And that's not always the case. And God showed me that straight up. Sometimes that's not the case. But in October of 2016, I woke up and I had been living in like a loft apartment that James Burton owned. Do you know who that is?
I don't think so.
He's Elvis Presley's guitar player and best friend.
Oh, okay, nice.
He all he's a super old dude, and he still performs at the boats in Shreveport, but he owns a lot of real estate. And he was a client of mine at one point, and it's like a slum apartment. Nobody's really lived there, and God knows how long. We didn't even have electricity, but we're kind of like squatting out in this place, but we're paying them like $300 a month or something, to stay there.
Yeah.
And I like at this point I'm an in-state fugitive for pharmaceutical fraud,
Mm.
and I was hiding in the armoires when like I would crawl into this old armoire when they would come bang on the door. Um, it was just my life was just chaos. I hadn't seen my family in 4 years. Like that's a long time, and
Yeah.
to be thrown away like that, and I don't think people understand you can't enable the addict, but I don't think cutting them off and not even answering the phone. I'm not saying give them money or anything like that, but to
Yeah.
completely throw them away, I just don't think that's the answer.
Right.
Um, in my parents' defense, there's no handbook for this, right? They thought they were going to save my life by taking my kids, but that didn't work. Now we're 4 years in. I haven't seen anybody. They don't know if I'm dead or alive, but it that even traumatized me more. So I think we need to find, as a community, I think we need to find a way to not enable the person in active addiction, but still let that person know that they're loved.
Yeah. I've said that. I've said that. You're right. You're right. To completely, you can support people and show them that you're there. At least you're there without
Right.
enabling. You
Right.
really just don't want to give money and things like that. And I get it. If this person comes around and they steal every time they're around, then you might want to keep them on a phone call distance or whatever. But yeah, that means something. That means something to just know that you got people there.
It,
I remember being in that situation and feeling like nobody cared. It's not a good feeling.
it's not a good feeling. And then here it is, 8 years into my recovery. I still have issues and anger from the fact that they wouldn't let me talk to my kids. Okay, I didn't need to be around my kids high. I understand that. But
Mhm.
I could have gotten it together for a half a day and them been there and let me see my children, or just answered the phone when I
Right.
call. Because years later you realize like I have my kids, and Lord forbid this happen, I would handle it differently, is what I'm saying, because there's a lot of trauma and a lot of anger that I have to deal with. And I think families, they ask us to do the 12 steps, they ask us to heal, they ask us to do these things. But then years into our sobriety, they're still throwing it up in our face, and they're
Yeah.
not willing to do what they've asked us to do.
Right.
And I have a problem with that because
Yeah.
it's like you have to forgive. You have to, or it's just not going to work. And I
Right.
feel that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah.
But,
I feel the same way.
right. In October of 2016, I had woken up that day and I didn't feel good. And the last 2 years of my addiction, I had gotten up to about 12 bars a day. Now I'm prescribed 3 bars a day along with three Xanax. I mean, three Subutex, 8 milligrams a day.
Yeah.
Um, I don't even think that's legal anymore to prescribe
Ah,
those
that's a lot.
together.
When I was doing subby sex, I wasn't doing that much.
It was the 3 8 milligrams a day and then all these bars. And so I just didn't want to be conscious anymore. In that last year, I overdosed twice and I flatlined twice. I've been dead for 7 minutes,
Hmm.
3.5 minutes each time. And I've probably OD'd probably around 9 or 10 times. But the flatline happened twice. And I would have died and my family wouldn't have known. And that's a scary thought. So, um, and to give you an example how bad I was, after my worst OD, they pulled the vent out, and I've been playing this game, right? Where am I going? I'm going to behavioral med. I'm going to the insane unit. And I don't
Wow.
want to do that. I've got no clothes. I've got nothing but a hospital gown. I take off after they pull the vent out of me at LSU in Shreveport. I leave, run across Kings Highway barefoot
Mm.
after they had just pulled a vent out of me. Why? Because I needed my boyfriend to come get me so I could get home.
Yeah. So yeah. So you could get that sickness going.
Yeah. I
Is that
mean,
you
it
know?
was
Yeah.
crazy. I
Yeah.
would do anything to have footage of me in that gown running across the highway. Because it's like, I cannot believe I did that. I mean, what were the people driving thinking? I mean, I must have looked crazy, but I mean,
But
I
you know
was,
why? I know why you did it. Because the only thing on your mind was getting to that drug because you were addicted.
it just,
Like that.
yeah.
That's how it goes.
And I know I did want to go to the behavioral unit all that time. And you know what I mean? However long they were going to keep me there. But going back to October of 2016, I wake up, I don't feel good, and I smell something horribly bad. Now, like I said, I've got MRSA, but something
Yeah.
is definitely going on. And I lift up my shirt, and my whole entire left breast is black. Black.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is bad. I go to the hospital, I have 104, and they're prepping me quickly because they're saying that my breast is going to have to be removed.
Oh no.
And I remember thinking, Nicole, you're missing a kneecap. You hadn't seen your family in years. I've got a toe that's totally dead from osteomyelitis from shooting up in it. Half of my hip is missing. And I'm like, now you're gonna lose your boob, and for what? Like, get a grip. And I remember laying on a table in the OR and praying for the first time in a long time, like, just, I won't shoot up again if I can get through this. And of all things, when I woke up, my breast was still there. And a plastic surgeon one of the nurses had called a plastic surgeon to help me. And he came in and did that pro bono. And you could all, like, the long medical Q-tips,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
could put more than half of it. There was a hole. When you have MRSA like that, they don't stitch you up. You've got to heal from the inside out.
Right.
And almost half of that Q-tip would could go in that hole to clean it.
Man.
It was that deep. I look like I've been burned really bad on the side, but hey, I got to keep my breast. And
Yeah.
I did not pick up a needle after that. Not too much time happens before I get to my arrest, but I did put the needle down. But the thing is, the talc and everything, I wasn't healing. I had over 70 lesions on my body of infection, and I wasn't healing. So I'm taking the subs like I'm supposed to and eating bars, but I'm not getting any better.
Right.
And December rolls around, and every year at December, I would feel this pull. The holidays, whatever, I'd miss my family, and I'd want to get it together, but I never would. Come to find out, that is when December actually does matter. I decide that I'm gonna leave, and I do. And the guy that I was with is driving down the road going to work, gets pulled over for stolen plates, owes child support. And so they take him into Caddo Correctional Center. And I'm like, okay, this is my shot. Like, I want to try to get clean. I throw all my Subutex away, but I keep my bars because I know that withdrawal is going to be hell, right?
Hmm.
So I'm going to need that. And I text the landlord. I'm like, hey, look, he's been arrested. He's at Caddo. I'm not coming back. I'm trying to get my life together. She knew I was a junkie. They both did. And that I thought it was a blessing. But what really happens is they go do a welfare check and find a bunch of stolen property. Some of it was Elvis Presley memorabilia, and they don't know where to find me, but they know where to find him.
Mm.
At this exact moment, I'm day 3 in withdrawals. So like day 3 sub withdrawal is really kicking in,
Yes,
and I'm
definitely.
starting to get sick, and I can't deal with it anymore. And something's telling me that I'm about to die, and I can feel it. You know how they say you can feel it?
Yeah.
I can feel it. And I'm mad, I'm dope sick, and I'm covered in, I mean, there's no other way to say it. I've got like pus filled abscesses all over my body. More than half of my teeth are gone, they're rotten, and I scream out to God. I'm I'm mad. And
Hmm.
I'm like, Lord, if it's not too late, I questioned his existence. If you're there, show up, prove yourself, help me, save me. I don't want to die like this. I want my kids. Like I'm fixing to die and I can feel it, and I'm asking you to show up and save me. And at that moment, my friend that I'm staying with comes running down the hall and she says, Nicole, the house is surrounded.
Mm.
Now I'm married to a very dangerous man still, and they don't know who's in this trailer in Greenwood, Louisiana, with me. So they brought in the big wigs, like
Yeah.
the whole team.
SWAT team and
And
all that.
yeah, I mean, I'm not violent, but
Right.
I am on the run for pharmaceutical fraud, and I did have another felony for possession of stolen goods. Um, but I was like, okay, okay, God.
There was your sign.
Like he showed, like sometimes he shows up and it's not exactly what you're expecting, but
Yeah.
I felt relieved because the being on the run and to cry out in such desperation and to have it happen that way. You couldn't tell me nothing. That wasn't a coincidence.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm about to take this chance. And I remember going to the door and seeing all the it was crazy. I'm talking down the street. Like,
Mm.
I mean, just cop cars showing up and everything. And they took me down. Like I'm trying to cooperate.
Yeah, they do that, man. Police, they
Boom.
don't. They
They
do that.
took me down, and I was just like, okay. And I remember the embarrassment that I felt because I just looked so gross, but it was just humiliating.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm gonna be okay, and I was scared. So I went into it with the right attitude, but like I don't know, like going through intake is scary. And I had never done this before. With my prior felonies, I would show up with the bondsman and bond out within an hour. Now I
Yeah.
know I don't have a bond, and going through that intake process was scary. And my hair was down past my butt and matted because I
Mm.
hadn't brushed it in so long, and I was just in really poor shape. And I remember I didn't know what delousing was. Like I'd been to prison visitation before, but not an inmate. So I didn't know what that was, and they're spraying me down, and they got me in the shower. And at Cato, everybody has to wear the same panties. Okay. Like you get panties and you put it in the dirty bin, and then
Yeah.
like this woman's trying to hand me underwear. And I remember saying, oh no, thank you. I have my own. Cause I'm like, and she's like, don't say that, they're gonna eat you alive in there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? But when I was getting finished with the intake process, I had told them, it was the first time I told the truth. I was like, look, I'm shooting up Subutex 3 a day. I said I hadn't shot up in 3 months, but this isn't healing, and I'm taking 10 or 12 bars a day. I'm already in Subutex withdrawal, but um, this is how many bars I'm taking, or we're gonna have to put you in the infirmary, which they were gonna have to do that anyway because of the abscesses.
Yeah.
72 hours after I got arrested, I went into full blown kidney failure.
Mm.
Um, So now I don't like, I lose consciousness, and when I wake up, I am in the hospital with my ankle shackled to a bed, and I'm fighting for my life, like literally. And I remember thinking, Nicole, this is either gonna make you or break you, and we're not getting broken today.
There you go.
And so I started going through things that I wanted in my life. And now a little bit of clarity is happening. I'm realizing that I have a 6-year old who probably doesn't even know who his mom is.
Mm.
And I've got a 15-year-old. And I just remember thinking about my parents and how much I loved them and my kids and and it's like I'm literally shackled to this bed and I'm about to go through this withdrawal that thank God I didn't know what was going to happen.
Mm.
And you can't control your stomach. There's only way to say this. You can't control your bowels. I'm covered in vomit. I was covered in everything else. I mean, I remember thinking if I had a razor, I'd cut my skin off.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. It
you
drives you
know
crazy.
Yeah, I cut, like, I had scratch marks going all up my legs because it's like your skin, like it's literally like you've got something crawling underneath your skin.
Oh my
And
God. Yeah.
it's terrible. And the nurses there were kind to me, and a woman had come in with some clippers and she cut my long hair so we could brush it. And she let me take a shower. And I just was like, Nicole, you got to get through this. You got to
Mm.
get through this. We're not going to get broken today. And I'm like going through goals. I did have hallucinations during this process. Um, the whole thing was very scary. And it was around, I want to say it was around 45 days before they put me into GPOP, general population, for those
Yeah.
who don't know.
Yeah.
Uh, And I remember even being scared of that. And still, these sores are not healing like they want. And the other inmates think I have AIDS and they're making fun of me, you
Yeah. It's
know?
crazy. Wow.
And it was just crazy. And my time in prison, I made it the best thing that ever happened to me, uh, period. I was like, I'm not coming back. This is not for me. I'm gonna take every lesson. I did. I love Jesus, and I think I laugh with people because I'm like, I think Christians are the worst thing that ever happened to God, because they're judgmental, and
Yeah. 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 You're
I
right.
can't tell you how many times I was down and out, and getting preached at didn't do anything but make me so mad. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
You're right.
And it was bad. So I love Jesus, and I made the point to thank him for things while I was in there. I praised him while I was in there. I thanked him for putting me in there. And I had asked him to not open up the gates until I was on his time. And DOC lost my good time, and I straight up did 2 years on 5 when I only should have done 9 months.
Yeah.
But I wasn't complaining because I was serious, and my family comes back into play. They start coming to visit me, and they're like, "Hey, look, we're gonna get you. We love you, and we can get you through this." And I was excited about life in prison. I was excited about life.
It does that. It does that, man. Prison saved your life. I can already tell you.
Oh, yes, it
Prison
did.
saved your life. And I've met a
It
lot of people like that. The smallest things make you happy when you're in. I remember being happier in jail because I never went to prison. I've done a bunch of jail time, but I never made it to that next level in prison. I've been every other institution, but I remember being happier in jail than I was on the streets most of the time.
it's a thing. Like, I would go, I was going to the church services and minding my business, and people who say that prison sobriety doesn't count is full of it, because literally the day that I got into general population, my bunkie was the one that was selling the subs.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I
that's
had a
crazy.
made up mind.
I've never heard nobody say that, but that's definitely bullshit. And I don't
Yeah.
care what you're doing. If you're not putting these drugs in your system, it counts.
Yeah, right. And there was just, I mean, I saw more drugs in prison than I actually did on
Yeah,
the street. I mean, it was
yeah.
crazy.
So
And they
you had
had many,
access.
yeah. And they have, and I look, my parents are putting money on my books and stuff.
Yeah. You had
So
access.
I mean, I could have, but I didn't because I didn't want it. And look, I'm a little controversial, and I'm gonna say this: I support all forms of recovery. You know what's working for you, okay?
Mhm.
But when you are brave enough to get through the withdrawal, and I'm not calling other people not brave. Let me speak for myself. I was
Yeah, say,
brave
say what you
enough.
gotta say.
I was brave enough to face it, okay? When you're brave enough to put yourself through that, to be accountable for how dependent your body is on a substance, okay? When you're brave enough to say, I am getting out of my own way and I'm reaching out to God and I'm gonna feel this and I'm gonna own this, you get to recovered like I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because two things: withdrawal and Jesus. Done. I done. I'm not going back. I will not go back. And I think there is such beauty in the suffering. There's such strength in the
Yep.
suffering.
Yep.
And it can get you through it, because now
Yep.
it's like, why would I sign up for something that's going to make me suffer like that?
Right.
Like, no, no, thank you.
Yeah, there's some
And
positivity that comes out of it for sure.
absolutely. And you start to learn yourself. You start to know who you are. You start to embrace your flaws, which was something I couldn't do. I suffer with body dysmorphia really bad. And
Mhm.
so what most people would have considered beautiful, now I'm in prison with like 5 teeth covered in scars it, no. Like,
Mhm.
and I'm having to learn to love myself like that. I'm having to accept myself like that. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I chose it. I allowed it to be. And then when they shipped me to Hunts, which is where the most of the lifers are, our 20 plus years are, they had to ship me
Mhm.
there because of my kidneys. I was around all these women that had killed their husbands from abuse.
Mm.
And I remember one night my ex-husband had beat me so bad and he had passed out on heroin. And I held a gun to his head for about 10 minutes.
Damn.
And I was just like,
You would have been just like them.
yeah, because that's what happens. You don't
Yeah.
kill during the beating.
Right.
You
Right.
kill,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
You're right.
I would have, and I remember thinking that that's going to be me, and I'm still married to this person, and that's what gave me the strength to file for divorce.
Right. So you did that in prison? You filed for divorce in prison?
I did. And let me tell you, like, I was waiting on this man to come home, and he got that six flat, right?
Hmm.
My 2 years are the last two of his six. We hit the streets 48 hours apart. Tell me that
Wow.
ain't God. God
Yeah.
knew. Like, he had to sit me down and, like, look, girl, get it together. And that's how it worked out. So I filed for divorce in prison, and he had been in prison for so long already. It like it's. I think my parents paid like 100 and something dollars. Like, it's super cheap, if not free. I'm not really sure. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But I did. I filed for divorce, and right before I got out of prison, going through everything that I went through, um, having to heal like that, and knowing that I had taken my addiction to such depths of the crimes that were committed. And I think you have to be super sick, like I said, to put a needle in your face.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's just a deep, deep level of sickness. Um, I'm talking to my family, and my stepdad had said, well, you can't come home. We found you a women's shelter in Alexandria, Louisiana. And I ain't gonna lie to you, I was mad. I've
Yeah.
been in prison for 2 years. I want to come home.
Right.
And but I had also asked God to lead my path. And when you are going to be accountable to your family, um, I that's what I wanted. I wanted my family back. I wanted my kids back. You have to be willing to prove yourself. And
Yeah.
if you're not willing to do that, so I bit the bullet and I was mad. But the way everything took place was, there was a lady that was in Mississippi by the name of Gloria Shatanya. She ran into my aunt, and she's like, "There's a place that she can go here," and so she brought me here. And I remember the morning of my release, which was yesterday, 6 years ago yesterday,
Mm.
uh, being scared, like what is out there? Like now I've been in prison. What's to come of me, you know? And it's crazy to think that you're scared leaving prison, but I was. No, I wasn't worried about getting high, but I was worried about everything else. And I
Yeah.
meet this, I meet this lady, Gloria. When I get out, it was about a 3 hour drive, and I'm staying in a women's shelter that belongs to our church. And a few days after I got released, I got baptized, and Gloria was in the water with me. And what makes that special is 3 days later, she introduced me to her son, and that's my
Mm.
husband.
Oh, that's your husband today?
Yeah. So,
Wow.
right. So here it is. She's in she was in Mississippi in a hotel lobby. Like we're from Louisiana. The odds
Yeah.
of her running into my aunt and saying, "Hey, there's a spot for her," and I mean, it works out. She did not introduce us for us to be together. It's just how it worked out.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
because two ex addicts together. My husband's almost 8 years clean off of meth, but that's usually not a good idea. But we both had 2 years recovery when we met.
Yeah.
So like at first, people weren't excited about that. It was a little
Right.
controversial.
Shout out to him for that too. Shout out to him for that, for the eight
Oh,
years.
right. I had nothing to offer him either. Like I here it is, I'm living in a women's shelter, and he loved me and believed in me like that. And I remember like every man that I've ever been with has sexualized me or made it about all these other things. And we hadn't been together too terribly long. And I asked him, as all women do, we think we're going to get this answer. I asked him, I said, "What is your favorite thing about me? Like, what do you think is the most beautiful thing about me?" And he didn't even have to think about it. And he said, "Your scars."
Mm.
And I was
Scar.
like, didn't know what to say, because it was like, oh, wow. And we got married fast. I got out of prison the end of May, and we got married on his birthday in November. Um,
Nice.
yeah, and everybody's like, "This is a great idea." Two ex junkies, here
Just
they
gave y'all
go,
more of a reason to prove everybody wrong, though.
and that's exactly what we did.
Yeah.
Um, we got married, and my husband had a dream to do. We started off with sober living, and our big dream is to do a rehab. But that's what I just supported him. He wanted to do sober living, and that's what we've been doing. And my media um my media just kind of blew up. I think
Yeah.
what was so crazy about that is nobody, and I mean this humbly, but when they saw the video of me saying I'd been in prison, they were thinking, what does this desperate housewife, preppy looking, middle-aged white woman know about prison? They thought I was joking.
Yeah.
And I like,
Yeah.
no, like I for real did that.
You have got a hell of a story. You've been through a lot of shit. I can
I,
tell
I
you that.
I have, and let me tell you one thing. Let me tell you how serious I am about my sobriety. My teeth were an issue. That was
Mhm.
embarrassing, and within a week of my release, my parents said that they would arrange for all my teeth to be pulled, to get dentures. And I remember, like, dentures is scary. Like, that's embarrassing to even think or talk about, but I had no choice. You know what I mean? Like, I was in bad shape. And I laid there with nothing but numbing agents, wide awake, nothing for my nerves, and had all my teeth that were left pulled out of my head, wide awake, and only took ibuprofen. Like,
Hell yeah.
I mean, like, that's how, I mean, it was too early on, I just got out of prison and
Dedication.
everything like that. And it just, you can do anything you set your mind to, period. And that's where I'm at today. I try to help as many people as I can with domestic violence. The amount of abuse that I took was severe. Um, and I don't know. Like when I look back at my story and what I've been through, I can't even believe that I made it and I've come out on top. And that's why I tell my story, because I want every man or woman out there that's lost in addiction right now to see, like, hey, look, being sober does not have to suck. You
Right.
can have this incredible life. And it's so important when you can't just put the drugs down. That's not the most important part of sobriety. The most important part of sobriety is dealing with yourself,
Yeah.
accepting your flaws, because the only way to get through your trauma is to get through it and to put it behind you. That's the biggest part of sobriety. Putting the drugs
Yeah.
down is the first step, and then
Yeah.
there's 50 million steps after that. And
Yeah.
if you're brave enough to do that, then you're going to make it. And I want everybody to see that it can be done and you can have a happy life.
For
In the
sure.
beginning, my PTSD was unbelievable. Now that's a lot better. But things definitely worked out. And if somebody would have told me that I would have a media platform as big as I do, I wouldn't have believed that either. But it's a God thing. And I cut up and make people laugh, but I have a serious platform at that. So
For sure. Yeah. So yeah, what's your TikTok? That's your biggest following on TikTok, right?
yes, I
What's your
am.
TikTok name?
Nicole Victorious one or Laughing Sober Wife. Both of them. You know how you have two handles on there,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
my Facebook is Nicole Pearson Chatagnier.
Yeah. So everybody watching, be sure to go follow her and check her out. Support her on her journey. I think that's awesome the way everything you know, I feel like my story is crazy when I look at it. Then I hear stories like yours, and I'm like, damn, this person went through way more. Or I feel that way. I feel like you went through a lot more than me. Because I've been through the overdoses and all that too. But just everything with the abscesses and everything. I never really dealt with that. I was never on the IV side of things. So that your story is very encouraging to people out there. The fact that, I mean, look at you now, and while you're telling me this, I'm trying to picture how you looked back then because
Oh,
I don't.
what? Hold on, I got something for you. I don't know if you'll be able to see it.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see, because I couldn't picture.
That's my mugshot.
That is crazy. And look at you now.
So
Look at you
pretty
now.
right here.
Yeah,
Um,
you're a true success story.
it yeah, thank you. I it's been it's definitely been a journey. And for people, men get in abusive relationships too, but like my husband and I, my husband's like hands on in the streets working and helping as many people as he can. And but the fact that I've found happiness after all
Mhm.
that, the fact that I have a marriage that we're best friends and we literally tell each other everything, and there's trust and peace, it's a possible, it's possible. And I like to tell people, if you're going through any kind of abusive, whether it's mental or physical, get away from it. And I once thought that I would never love like that again. You know what I mean? Like I was never
Yeah,
going to be happy, and I was absolutely miserable, because by following God and by doing what I needed to do, he gave me so much more than I ever possibly could have imagined. And now I am with my forever, my
yeah,
that term ride or die, which I don't like to use, but
right.
it seems like everybody that's ride or die, you're doing more dying than riding. But anyways,
Yeah. I
but
seen a, I seen a post on Facebook here a while back. They was talking about this is your third ride or die this year. Like
exactly,
you done died 3 times.
yeah. People are talking about, oh, you're my whole world. Were you building a solar system?
Yeah,
Like, there's a lot of those, but it just, I don't know. Like, anybody can overcome anything. Like I said, my
for sure.
husband's clean, off of meth that long, and he's also a published author. And we're working on a website and everything to promote what we're doing, but we are a nonprofit. So the Revive Recovery little logo or whatever, we do work on donations and stuff like that.
Is
So
that on your website? How can people find that?
yes, I can send you the link, but if you go to the link in my bio on Facebook or TikTok, it's my snip feed. All of that is right there. And
Okay. Yeah.
donations are definitely appreciated because here's the thing. My husband has an amazing family, and so many addicts, they have been completely um I'll shut down in a minute. They have been completely thrown out. Some people never had family. Okay,
Yeah.
some people never even had it,
Right.
but some their families cut them off, and it's our whole thing is to love and to give the foundation to where we're showing them how to function in society and have that love and have that family and all of that. Like tomorrow with Memorial Day weekend, we're having them all over at our house and doing a big cookout. All those things, they do
Great.
add up. So we do rely on donations, but we try to show so much love because it's needed. And for me, somebody who didn't have childhood trauma, but look what happened to me. I can't imagine somebody with childhood trauma and then the trauma that comes along with addiction. They need to feel loved. They need to feel like they're a part of a family. And that's what me and my husband and his parents do. It's a family business.
That's awesome, and I support what y'all doing. I can tell you firsthand that Scar Nation will be making a donation today to your foundation or your nonprofit. And if anybody else wants to go over there, say it again. It's on your Facebook page.
It is, but
How to,
it's Revi Recovery. That's REVI. But my husband's sitting right here. It's I don't know if you can see that. I can send
okay.
it to you, and
Yeah, yeah. Send it to me, and
I'll.
I'll put a little donation down, and I
Well,
encourage
thank
everybody
you.
else to do the same thing. I agree. I think what you're doing is great, and we need more of it. So, and I know what it's like to kind of rely on donations and stuff to make things happen. So, I've built my whole platform off of support from community support.
Right.
So,
And that's that's where we're at. And our big dream is to have like a really large rehab. Hands down. We do prison ministry. Like my favorite thing to do is to go into the prisons and talk because those people made a difference in my life when I was an inmate and I was sitting there. And we do as much as we can. And it's important because so many times when you're talking about addiction, everybody's like, "Oh, well, that's their own fault," and they shouldn't have got there, and they're
right,
hateful about it. And
right,
I'll be the first to tell you, in high school, college, my early 20s, I thought the same thing. Fast forward 10 or 15 years, and I can't. Look what I'm doing to myself. So it can happen to anybody, and it's crazy to think that I ended up as bad as I did.
yeah, it is. That's how But the comeback story was worth it. I ain't gonna say worth it, but you've turned a negative situation into a positive, and that's how I look at it.
Absolutely. And I say this all the time, like I'm battled with I've recently been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. It's the most it's the most painful thing. I get mad at myself. All the times I lied and said my knee was hurting trying to get drugs, and now I'm over here feeling like I'm really dying. But you can your attitude is gonna affect everything. So I can either say that I have RA or RA has me, and I just have to be positive about it. So, of course, I've turned my testimony into something positive, but it's deeper than that. I live my life like that because I can't. I fought. I crawled out of hell to have my life and to be happy, and I have to continue that. It's an important part of my recovery.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, yeah, I'm gonna check your book out too. Say your book again before we wrap up. I want everybody to know where they can find your stuff at. So, what's the
It
book called one more time?
Victorious, my path to redemption.
Victorious My Path. I just started reading again, so I'm gonna pick that up and check that out. So, yeah, guys, y'all go check her out. Pick up the book if you want to donate to her nonprofit or her and her husband's nonprofit. Do that. Go check her out. Go follow her. Support her. And thank you for coming on the Scar Nation podcast, Nicole. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I've enjoyed myself.
Yeah, and hell, maybe we'll do it again sometime.
Hey, I'm always down to talk about recovery. My husband and I are a little controversial about some stuff, but hey, it is what it is.
Hey, we all are. You know what I'm saying? All
Right.
right, guys. Thank y'all for supporting the podcast. Share, like, share, do all that. It helps the algorithm. And again, Nicole, I'll check you later.
All right. Thank you.